I said talk to me, damn it, or else I'm gonna throw you in the fire!
You stupid bitch, you filthy... Flyover State of Fear.
All right, welcome to Flyover State of Fear with my guest this week, Sharai from Nightmare on Fierce Street. How are you today?
Doing okay. I had a great day of laying around feeling gross but watching horror movies, which makes it better.
Nice. You watch anything good?
Oh my God, I watched Death Drop Gorgeous, and I watched Through the Looking Glass Darkly. I believe is how I say those. They were both at Soho Horror Fest.
Okay.
And we couldn't attend because I was moving. And so they were generous enough to let us see some of the stuff even outside of the window.
Oh, that's excellent. I can't wait to check those movies out when just based off of if they're your recommendation when they come through. But thank you so much for coming on. I think what I say, this is our fifth episode of Flyover State of Fear. Really appreciate it. This is our first time meeting for the guests, but instantly hit it off, and we followed each other on Twitter for a bit and always had good banter. So I heard you, I read you tweeting about The Conjuring, and I was like, I have to ask her to come on for this. It's a little different from the previous episodes we have, but tell me a little about you. So today we'll be talking about The Conjuring and adjacent to Conjuring universe, which still is a weird sentence that there's a Conjuring universe, you know?
We do a lot of things because we can and not because we should.
No, So I do want to ask before I get into it, what's your horror background or what got you into it, and kind of just a little like origin story of Sharai's horrorness.
Awesome. So I was number 6 of 8 kids. I had 5 older brothers, and the youngest of that group is 11 years older than me, and they could watch horror movies, and I couldn't as a kid. And I'm a Gemini, and you can't say I can't do something, especially because I learned about sexism very early. So I was like, can they watch it because they're dudes? Can they watch it because they're older? What's the problem here, Mom? And so finally I wore her down, and she was kind of like, you can watch them, but don't have nightmares to come crying to me about it. And so I would watch them, and I'd have tea parties with Freddy Krueger and Michael Myers.
Oh, you mean Freddy Krueger and
oh my God,
but
yes,
and Michael Myers.
Those are my 2 favorite. Those are my imaginary friends as a child.
Freddy's my guy. So that's awesome. I mean, I totally get that. I just have an older brother. I was the youngest, and I was afraid of everything. I get scared of these things, and I'll talk about it with The Conjuring a bit. But I understand that though. But then you just do it and you love it. So it's complete. Like you said, it was just because you're the youngest and you were a girl combination. I was like, you're not going to handle it. And it's like don't assume it, right? At least you experience it, and if you don't like it, you're like, okay, I can't handle it. But now I get it.
I didn't understand how wild it was that when I got older, maybe 8 or 9, that they were coming to me for horror recommendations.
That's about when the insight happened for myself, 10, 9.
It's something around there. You stop going, ooh, it's horror, and start going, oh, this is actually good. I like this. Even if that changes in a couple years, you're like.
For me, for me, it was like, okay, you're over Chucky's not scary anymore and this and that. And then we saw Zack Snyder remake of Dawn of the Dead in theaters. We were about 12, 11. And I thought it was hysterical. I thought it was really funny and good. And then I was completely kicked in the teeth when I go, well, all horror movies are like this. And I rented House of a Thousand Corpses on demand. And I was like, well, no. And, it screwed me in the sense of, Well, okay, there's lanes.
There's so many lanes.
There's so many. Anyway, and so the one lane we're going to talk about today. I'm sorry. Anything else you want to add on to yourself?
I was just going to say, I love that you brought up Chucky because I was so young when I was watching the Child's Play movies that I couldn't say freckles. Yes. So I would say fuckles and people would laugh because I'm a child watching the horror movies and I can't say freckles.
And you're saying fuckles. That is...
He has freckles. And they're just
cute.
like, haha.
But yeah, that... Oh, he was terrifying until, like, you just realize they're just really good movies.
Yeah. I've been slowly rewatching the originals because they're up on places, and I just finished 3, and I was like, these are quality.
I watched 3 yesterday, actually, when my, just laying around state. I think it's on Netflix now, but 2, I think, is just a complete tangent, is the most tight, one of the more tight horror movies ever made, and, it's a little more just thriller-ish, right? Yeah. But it's like 80 minutes, and there's not a wasted minute, and I don't feel like I was robbed of a movie. Anyway, this isn't that podcast, but Child's Plays are great, so enjoy the rewatch.
Thank you.
So, okay, so today we're talking about 2013's The Conjuring. Have you it's got it right here. It's James Wan's The Conjuring, James Wan of Saw and Insidious, and you kind of say James Wan helped usher in our modern day horror aesthetic.
Yes.
Yes. Did you see The Conjuring in theaters or
no? I missed all of The Conjuring until last year for the podcast. We did the first one for Halloween.
Okay.
And I was like, that's too spooky. I'm going to have to pause. Yeah. And so this year I was like, they're all on HBO Max. I'm going to go for it so I can get caught up before this new one comes out because I'm going to see that, obviously. Yeah. And so I binged them, which is when you were like, hey, you're watching all of these. I'm like, yes, I am.
Yeah, that's what I saw. And I thought it was a first time. I was like, that's perfect.
Yeah.
So, little background about 2013, and you had Insidious already come out, and then this movie, The Conjuring, comes out in the summer. And I remember this very vividly. This movie has an impact on me pretty well. And it's weird because it's joked about today as being big budget horror when there's so many small budgets, but it really was just a middle budget movie that we used to get in the 90s. It was a $20 million movie that then went to gross hundreds of $1 million, and that used to happen all the time. And that's something, as just a movie nerd, I want to come back. I want the $20 million movie to come back, the 15. Yes. Anyway, so that was The Conjuring when it came out. And real quick, the synopsis is, it's about Ed and Lorraine Warren. They're demonologists. They're famous, and it's about their case that was never written about. And it's about this parent family, a family of six daughters, the mother, father, and they buy a house, and some extreme hauntings go on, and the Warrens investigate it. That is as bare as I could say. We will have spoilers. If you've listened to me, you'll have some spoilers. This is just a conversation, and that's really what we're working with. And our leads are Vera Farmiga, Patrick Wilson,
Lili Taylor,
and Lili Taylor. I always want to say Lily Tomlin, but it's Lili Taylor.
Same. Two completely different people, but equally important.
and Ron from Ron Livingston, but Office Space.
Yeah.
Right? He'll always be Office Space.
Literally. It was it's Lili Taylor in Office Space. I mean.
So, and then the only kid that I'm going to stand out, because I'm going to forget all of who they are, which really, is young Joey King, who's fantastic today.
Yeah.
She's a really good actress. And I think she does the most in this movie. So what were your, I guess, thoughts? And let's just go through it. Because it starts off weird. It starts off with a little short story of Annabelle. And so
this is where they establish their formula of giving you basically 2 movies and a sneak peek at something else they're going to throw in here later on.
There's 3 in this. I watched this time. So my thought of watching this time, and I've seen it a few times since the theaters, and I never realized, and maybe I'm just dumb. This is like if Quentin Tarantino decided to make a horror movie. James Wan just in the sense of he just borrowed from every single movie, and it works. I don't want to say the movie doesn't work. This movie works very good.
It works, and he also understands pacing, which is something a lot of horror directors don't. Unfortunately, I watch a lot of horror movies, and I know how that sounds.
No. Welcome to this podcast where we're going to talk about horror movies. So you're good company.
No, so I feel like sometimes they forget pacing because they're luxuriating and what they think is creating ambiance. Like, if you look at Conjuring 3 as opposed to any other ones that James Wan does direct, it's a completely different movie and it's slower, and that's part of what hurts it. It's because he's like, we need to get to the next bit. We need to keep driving. Mm-hmm. And a lot of directors forget that sometimes because they're like, this is really cool. I want to play with this more. So yeah, I'm definitely a fan of James Wan's horror work. I know he does things outside of the horror world.
Aquaman and Fast and the Furious, and you're like, oh, okay, get that paycheck.
I'm sure those are also very well paced. They're just
I think he has the best Fast and Furious movie, but at the same time, I could be wrong because I don't remember. I see them and then I forget about them.
My sister had a crush on Vin Diesel, so I saw the first two when we were kids. But after that, I was no longer with somebody who had a crush on Vin Diesel. So,
my wife and I are big fans of the podcast How Did This Get Made, and they cover all of them. So we, they're events to make fun of but enjoy. I haven't seen the new one, but so James Wan directed one of those movies. I think he actually, like I said, the guy's smart because he directed them, and I think he does like the thing where if he puts his name on something, then he becomes a producer on anything for the rest of them.
Yeah, because his name appears on everything in this franchise, even though I'm sure if he went checked in, he would not want it on there.
And that's the. So I'll go through that franchise because I do think they're interesting, but I do think you and I could get through almost every other movie besides this first one with like 3 minutes.
Yeah, because it's mostly like, how did this happen? How did this get made?
Yeah. So, you have the Warrens, and they move in, and you mentioned pacing, and that's so important because a lot of horror movies, and some I say are fantastic. They think they're a slow burn, and the slow burn hurts it. So, like, recently I discovered that with House of the Devil, Ty West's House of the Devil, which is a movie. Oh, I do think it's fantastic. It's definitely clearly a student movie. You have a really young who's Little Women, the woman who directed Little Women. I'm blanking on her name.
I know her name.
She's in it. She's not your final girl. Anyway, I bring it up. We covered on Flyover, and I was like, it's great. It's slow burn to a fault because it's a student movie. It's like The Conjuring in the sense where it's being shot like it's the 1970s. But I definitely would give it a watch. But if you asked me 2 years ago, I'd like be screaming about it. But since watching, I'm like, yeah, it's movie. So anyway, back to the Conjuring. So you introduce them, Ed and Lorraine Warren, in the real lives are just pieces of shit. I mean, I think they are. Everything I've read about them, they're just con artists.
I have heard and read so many conflicting reports that I don't even know what.
Sure.
Which I think is another draw to this franchise because you're like, however much of it is real or however much of it is not real.
Well, that's funny too. Like I was reading the trivia, and it's like Andrea Perrin, the Lily Tomlin,
Taylor.
Taylor shit. I'm gonna keep doing it. Lili Taylor. She, the woman who she's playing, Andrea Perrin, and then same with Lorraine Warren visit the set. And they both said, "Oh, it's really accurate." And then you asked anyone else involved with the first movie, and they're like, "It's not accurate." I mean, I'm jumping around here. It was one of the few notes I did have from research is the Warrens got kicked out. they get kicked out of the house.
Damn.
I believe the father, Roger, punched Ed in the face after doing, some sort of exorcism type thing, and like just be like, "What are you doing to my wife?"
Damn.
So you're right. There are conflicting things. So I can't. I was being a bit tongue in cheek saying they're pieces of shit. I don't know that if they really are, but
yeah.
I know, like, they're like, I think what's weird about the movies too, and listen, I'm not really even talking about the movies with you, so is like you read about. I remember reading about it, and this is their business and all, but the movies they're like religious movies without telling you they're religious movies, and
that's the gross part.
Yeah, and the real Warrens, I'm sure were, but at the same time, like Ed Warren, I think they were in a polygamous relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I think he had like a live-in girlfriend, which is no problem. You do you. But the movies make it like, hey, they're just these good two people. They look like supermodels. I mean, you cast
Patrick and Vera.
Patrick and Vera, and like, yeah, I'm gonna buy a ticket on the two of them alone. Mm-hmm. So I get it. It's Hollywoodized, and I don't think, but I do think we should. There's part of me that wishes we just had like, fake, like they almost like here's the superhero team. Here's the team, and they're loosely based off of this. They're not these people lives.
Yeah, especially because we start off and we're using like source material. Again, I don't know how much is what and how much isn't, because I mean, I was a kid and I know about Amityville, and I know that there was a book in my mother's like bookcase I never actually read, and it was a true story. But like, I think that these movies, in addition to them being like super religiously pushy in a way,
they're they're a little gross, religiously pushy. They're good, but it's so that's my rant on the Warrens. I don't know much, but I just know they're more con arty than not.
Which I feel like that is definitely also not helped by Hollywood. Whatever did or did not happen, and whatever people choose to believe, the Hollywood gloss does not help that, because Hollywood's very much like, let us make some shit up, and it's going to be your story now. And so, for all we know, Lorraine's journal is giving us like what actually happened, and it was a weird house, some shit went down, and then Hollywood's like, and there's a nun now, and it's like, no, just give us what she said so we can evaluate.
That's what I found funny on this critical watcher. Like, there's a nun now. It's like, because it is truly my wife's friend, I remember, read the book that the house is based on, that Andrea Parent, or no, her daughter wrote, like Lighthouse, Dark House, I think it's called.
Yeah.
And the events take place over a decade.
Yeah.
And that's cool. That's fine with me. I understand you have to condense a story. I got a good horror movie out of it. I could separate fact to fiction to whatever. I'm not going to see the, true story of, I don't know, Bill Clinton or whatever. I'm just naming a historical figure, going, well, that was complete bullshit.
Right.
But like, so, I'm just going to kind of move through it in the sense of the Annabelle scares in the beginning happen. I think they're scary. Or were you familiar with the original Annabelle, what the actual Annabelle doll looks like?
I didn't know it was Raggedy Ann, and also because I don't do research, I want to go into stuff without knowing anything, because I'm a ruiner. I went into this thinking that this Conjuring, it was going to be them and Annabelle. So I was like, what's the doll going to do? And then they were like, we're done with that part, to the actual movies. And I was like, wait, what? Where'd she go?
I actually love that as a short, though, in the beginning. And the only reason why it looks like that, because Raggedy Ann is scarier. I'm sorry. Is because James Wan is creepy puppet.
Yeah.
It's the only reason why he it's his thing. It's his calling card. That's great. That's our second movie. Yeah. And then we get through, weird things start happening. By weird, I mean they move in, the kids kind of hear some stuff, the mom's feeling Office Space is just running around. And he's doing nothing. I mean, like, he's just being dad.
Your horror movies dads are worthless. That's just the job. When you sign on, you're walking.
Bad dad. He's just dad. And then the most shocking thing of it all is it's actually the only death in the movie is the dog dies. But it's a movie where what I found crazy is it's a movie where people don't say, oh, that's a movie where the dog dies. That's something you always notice if a dog dies in a movie. Like someone would go, oh, you know, I recommend X, but the dog dies.
Yeah, no, and it's because so much is happening, and so we're like, oh, the woman leaped off of her with a dresser, or oh, the woman wasn't talking about how she got these bruises, and we're like, oh yeah, but the dog. Which is again the only death in a horror movie. Normally, I'm like, you can't call this a horror movie if nobody dies, and I'm like,
This movie also has an R rating, and it's only because of scares. There's no cursing, there's no gore. I mean, a little gore, but no, you know, nothing wild.
It got an R rating for hand clap.
Which is kind of cool. I'm not gonna lie. I like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre-ness of that, right? Like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you don't see anything, you don't hear anything, and then it got banned from countries in the 70s.
Listen.
Right?
The 70s were there to ban. That was their brand. It's like, ban it.
You're not wrong. So I do want to add, because I did listen to your one podcast, and I know you touch a lot, you know, as a person, like feminism and those issues and things. And I did want to ask you though is, so this was a movie written by men, and it's majority of women, and I just would love to hear your take on that, because I definitely, from listening to what you've spoken in the past, come with such a different perspective than myself would go, yeah, they were phenomenal. Like that's
they've cast amazing women in this first Conjuring. Like it gets a little bit dicey going in some of the like
I agree.
Spin-offs. But like this one, you have Lily and you have Vera, and this is going to be a battle. So they can make anything sound amazing. I do feel like I sometimes do feel like they make Lorraine out to be this saint, and that makes me a little bit uncomfortable. But again, I don't know the real Lorraine, so maybe it's how she has herself perceived. But she's very much like, I'm going to remain quiet, and we're a team, and I never have a bad thought. I've never had sex in a car. I've never had a drink. And I'm just like, you've lived, woman. You've seen shit. I know you're going home and you're medicating.
Lorraine, yeah, she's angelic, right? That's what they make her. She's
which is that trope again.
And so is Patrick Wilson, right? I mean, God, he's fixing a goddamn car in this movie, like he's like Johnny America.
They have put them into those outdated gender stereotypes where she is the quiet, forgiving medium who can see the things, and he's the muscle. He's gonna run in and punch the ghost, and then it's gonna like exorcise the girl because he's watched it twice. He can do this. The moments that they slow things down in the second one so she can plead with him to wait for her, and he's like, I have to go save her. It's my thing. Especially when the stakes are so low because we know he does not die because of this nun that they're trying to make a thing out of. That's the movie.
The one thing with the movies too. So thank you for that. That makes complete sense. And the one thing with these movies is, I'm just going to go through kind of all, because you could bunch them together.
Yeah.
Is like that. Is the first one they kind of do it where it's like this is going on, because you really could cut out you know, the first one really is just a haunted house movie, and we're introducing you know, the medium from Poltergeist, right? Like, and her team, and they just said, you know, let's make a movie around them and the family, and we'll cut it in 2 hours. You don't need that. It works. But then you have the thing with Annabelle going on, and then like in the first movie it gets a little, when you start thinking about it, it's a little goofy that like this demon's so powerful that it's getting her kid at home and like possessing Lorraine's whole like business. And I'm like, but you brought up Lorraine being angelic, and I didn't like the third one. I couldn't get into it. I thought it was pretty bad. I remember the second one being okay. I saw it in theaters. But by the third one, Lorraine is just a superhero. It reminded me of an X-Men movie, because she'd like walk into a scene, she's like, I got it. I'm like,
she's running in the woods. Like,
okay.
The third one, I feel like the third one opened with that thing that they want to give you that teaser always, and it opened with a movie that was ending that I'd rather see than what we actually got.
Yeah.
And I was like, where's that movie? I don't want to see Ed figure out how to use heart pills and walk around on a cane, especially when it's like Patrick Wilson. I don't know who got the note in this like production team of, hey, we cast 2 Greek gods to play these people, and people have issues with that on Twitter. Give her a cardigan, give him a cane.
That's the same thing with Vera. You give her the bouffant Lorraine has, and I'm like, Vera, you look good in anything, but you don't need the bouffant.
You've made your choice at this point. We are like 19 movies deep. Just go ahead and be like, we cast Greek gods. People are pissed. We're moved on. Don't be like, here's your cardigan. Slow
they're
down.
Fictional characters at this point.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I mean in the second. So anyway, I don't think I mentioned. So this movie I saw in theaters before I moved into my creepy college, senior year of college apartment, and I guess it had been in theaters for quite a time because I would have been in August. But I literally the next day went and no one was there, and it scared the hell out of me. I mean, like I was scared in the theaters when I saw this, and it's a scary movie, and I'm gonna just tell you my thing. What's one of the scariest parts thing in any movie is in this movie, and I think because it's relatable. If you had brothers and sisters, or just brothers and sisters, and it's relatable, and it's the bedroom scene, almost your first big scare, and it's her just saying, "There, it's something there." It's like, what's that? And it creeps me out to this day because the pacing of the scene, you don't get the reveal, and it's not really even a jump scare when you see it. It's just a flash. You see Bathsheba like on this dresser, and then it's gone, and terrifying.
That is when they're at their best. When they are fucking with us in that way, like that is always the scariest. I don't need the CGI. The CGI makes me laugh. The Cricket Man sounds awesome on paper, but watching it, I was giggling a little bit.
That's why the first one, I think, is a phenomenal horror movie. Also, failed to mention, this movie starts off with my favorite, or top 3 favorite title cards with the big font and Conjuring. No, the first one, minimal CGI. You get the CGI of her like burning, coming out of the house, and then but the second one. So you're telling me in the second one we're setting up, you were trying to throw in like 2 prequels. We're trying to still milk that Annabelle tea. Then we're setting up the Crooked Man. Then we're setting up the Nun. And then you're trying to tell me the movie. Then you're almost setting up Amityville.
Yeah.
And it's like, cut Crooked Man out, or it could be creepy as a story. You don't need to see it.
Every time they tease Amityville, I'm just like, stop. Because it's had 2 different runs. It was started over with Ryan Reynolds not that long ago. And like, they're always coming to it or going to it. And I'm just like, stop teasing it and do it, or stop talking about it. Because you have 19 movies here already. Be in these 19.
My prediction, I'm just making this on the fly, it'll be an HBO Max miniseries called The Conjuring Presents Amityville Horror.
Probably.
Because Universal, I think this was a lawsuit. I've like over the years done a decent amount of reading on this like stuff. The Warrens are, I think, sued Universal after, because they bought the rights to their book, so they own every story in their book.
Damn.
Yeah, something like that. Like it could be completely off. So if someone's listening, tell me. But like, I think there was a big lawsuit based on that.
That makes sense.
And I mean, Amityville's not their story, but they were a part of it. You could tell that lane. I don't even want to hear the Amityville. And even the second movie, it's well documented. The Warrens showed up and left after 2 days.
Yeah. Yeah, which is why part of the reason why they're not in the originals. Like Ryan Reynolds is running around shirtless with no Ed Warren in sight, and that remake.
I'm not talking about Amityville. I'm talking about the actual case that they're based around.
Oh, the one in England. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, the England. It's Conjuring Goes to England is like they're there for like a week or something like that, and they're like, "See ya."
That scans because I feel like whenever they wander away from the source material, things get very melodramatic.
Oh, the love. I mean, everything. The first movie, okay, based around love or blah blah. It's not heavy. It's not heavy, right? I do think there's some nuance in that first movie.
The
I
first
like
one
it.
is. I will die on the hill for the first one being a good
Yeah,
movie,
I think it's a.
Yeah.
And then the second one is a little more, and then the third one. And the only of the spin-offs that I know where is good, I've only seen the spin-offs all through once, except I think the last Annabelle I didn't see. But the second Annabelle, which is
Yes.
comes
That's the good
home,
one.
phenomenal.
Wait.
Yeah, that's the one at the house. With
Yeah.
the orphanage.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the good. Yeah, yeah.
That's the good one. That's
I think that's Creation though.
Yeah. See, but there's one good one.
Yeah.
The Nun was trash.
Anthony LaPaglia and Miranda Otto. Because they appeared and I was like, what? Are we getting quality actors in Annabelle who we might not just randomly throw off a balcony?
No. Because I think it's also directed by like Mike Flanagan or something like that too.
Oh, it was not Mike. I forgot who it was.
It's not Mike Flanagan, but it's one of those. Let's see, Annabelle.
I just watched it 2 days ago. It's the sad part. That would have been a cool note to take.
I think the Conjurings, though, this whole universe. You're right. It's Creation, by the way. Would be bad. We're talking about good directors. Would be better if they just gave them to like good. Like here's an up and coming director, almost like the VHS series, right? Like make here's some source material, but here's 3 rules. You got to mention God. They gotta be in love at the end, and but creepy stuff could happen in between.
If you can work in the daughter, bonus points.
So let me ask you though, because you watch so many horror movies. Oh, David F. Sandberg, Lights Out.
Thank you.
Let me ask you. So, because you watch so many horror movies, I know this is the one lane of horror movie like I can't watch like at night. Like my wife won't watch horror movies with me, but like I find my time to watch them. But I could watch. We were talking earlier. Your slashers, right? I could watch them. I'll watch them tonight. Whatever. They're not going to bother me 9 times out of 10. But and some thrillers. But the religious paranormal, and I'm not religious. I mean, I was raised Catholic, but I'm not religious. They unnerve me. Like if I have a kid ever, I'll get it baptized just so I don't have to deal with an exorcism one day.
Yeah. You have to like make sure you're like playing all the odds. I am the same way. Like one of the things I find truly terrifying is when we start adding religion into a film that are children. So the fact that The Conjuring always happens to a family with 18 children, so I can keep track of all of them.
You said you had so many kids too that you grew up with, and I'm like, oh wow, it must really more because Mona thought one of the first notes is stop having kids. To the parents.
Listen, like clearly these demons only find you after your 5th kid. Yeah. So just like stop doing what you're doing, and you'll be fine. But no,
like they get to that house and it's a terrifying house, and they're like, let's christen it. I'm like, this house.
It's beyond christening. I think that a lot of us have that like weird relationship to horror movies that deal with religion because no matter where we are today spiritually or lack of spirituality, odds are we were raised with someone who had a strong opinion one way or the other. And so like I don't know. I think it's just like the imagery of things. Like I am not a super religious person, but like also I can't see things saying on a Bible that upsets me. And I have to be like, let's remove that. And I don't know why. I don't know.
Well, I think also like it's a lot of things of I know what scares me the most in horror movies is being not in on the joke, right? And a lot of those religious horror movies, even The Conjuring, you're not in on the joke. And I think like if I know I have anxiety, if you have anxiety, like it taps even further in because it's such an unknown.
Yeah.
And that's I really want to, when whoever's listening, I'm just referencing the first movie when I'm talking about how terrifying it is because like I said, I had a real experience when I saw it in theaters. I don't know why. I am not lying. I was crying during tearing during the exorcism scene at the end. It got to me. I don't know what it was. It got to me, and I was like, that's why I walked away. I was like, that was a great movie.
It's because they're pulling in all of our like baggage and feelings and emotions that we don't even know we still have regarding how many times we went to church or had to go to Easter Sunday as children.
Sure.
And that's how these movies get at us. So like we're being grifted a little bit emotionally.
Isn't that every movie? But wow, like that, like towards the end, and if I've skipped anything you want to talk about through the movie, please let me know. But there are last like 20 minutes or so of the movie, then it just becomes a haunted house. I think in the best way.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you have your poltergeist crew; they're experiencing shit. Everyone's kind of starting to experience things, and they're just ramping it up. And I liked it, and it didn't. This time it reminded me of during the possession scene when she's in the floorboard, and that's when I tweeted at you I was actually going to say Lorraine Warren's a dummy, but I just said the Warrens because when she fell right through it, I'm like, that's just obvious. You don't walk back there.
Oh.
That's just bad flooring. She'd break her leg, but Hollywood. But when she was in the floorboard, you know what it reminded me of? The exorcism in the jail cell in Exorcist 3. I just came out of it today.
Yeah, I've not seen it.
It doesn't happen like that. It's just shot very like that way.
Yeah, going back to religious trauma, I've not actually done the original Exorcism. I've seen knockoffs and things that want to be Exorcism, but I haven't done the original. I'm gonna have to because it's time.
So the first movie, I think is terrifying and feels haunted. Like it's a movie that feels haunted. I don't know. Maybe I'm corny. The second movie, I think, is a joke. I've never seen it. The third movie literally shouldn't be called The Exorcism. It's like a Law and Order episode that has like, but if it's phenomenal, and I mean that in the best way, a Law and Order episode. Like it has maybe the scariest 6-minute scene of talk about good pacing. That's all I'll say.
Nice.
But I only seen the 1 and 3. The 3's very good. So yeah, but what any other because I mean like I'm not an Academy member, but I would have given Lili Taylor.
Yeah, no,
I would have given her an Oscar nomination for this because she owns the movie. And for 2013 today, for you to say Lili Taylor, who is also very good looking, right? Like she's very pretty. To give her as the lead though of your horror movie and say this is your they put her on the cover. They didn't put the.
No, she was in her like mid 40s when she did this.
That's
she's
my
like early 50s now. Yeah.
Like, and that's my point. Kind of bringing that up is she's your base of the movie, and she's tremendous. She's so good. I remember seeing it going. Office Space was being a bad actor. Like he's the only one that's wooden. Like he's bad.
Because Lili has had a career spanning so many random horror movies that didn't deserve her, and she finally got this one, and I was like, oh my god, this is good, and you're good, and so it's working for you, as opposed to you trying to say something you should have never signed on for.
So I feel like I just remember her always from like Mystic Pizza, so it's like
The Haunting with Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Yes, she is in that. Oh yeah.
Was it Owen Wilson? Yeah, it was Owen Wilson.
Yeah, it's Owen Wilson. It was Owen Wilson.
And I was like, Lili, why are you here? As a child.
Bad movie. It was like I remember that was like back to back rented at my house with 13 Ghosts. I think they came out at the same time.
That's a double feature. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I think they had them in the same blockbuster stack. So I just want to shout out to her. She's truly phenomenal in it.
She's one of a handful of leading actors in a horror movie this last decade that should have gotten nominated for something and was ignored.
Yeah, she's right there with the big one, Toni Collette.
Hereditary.
That's the one you ever.
Every day, she does not get an award for that. It's a day that is violence. I don't understand.
You know she's gonna get her like makeup award when she's like 75 and does some weird like Holocaust picture.
It'll be for something random, like Romy and Michelle's like 90th reunion, and it'll be like, really? She did this because a friend asked her to.
It'll be like Meryl Streep getting nominated for like Ricky and the Flash or something like that. And you're like, okay,
yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, anything you really want to bring up about the first movie and the rest of the franchises were.
I would not be me if I did not bring up that this franchise has a problem with people of color.
Sure. Yeah. No. I mean.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking because I'm trying to think of one.
We have two in the first movie.
First one
is
there's
the black reporter,
the guy at the end.
Yeah.
And obviously, like I said, I'm not. I'm glad you brought that up because I'm not. But please go off on it because
always.
There's probably a way. There's probably a way to bring in people of color without being like heavy-handed of like, see, we did this. Let's have characters.
Listen, so again, I've watched all of these pretty much back to back. And so I was like, it's going to get better, right? Because like 2013 was 9 years ago. And they're like, no. So you leave this and you're like, okay, I saw two people of color, maybe all of a minute of screen time between the two of them. Not great, but better than most, unfortunately, because it's Hollywood. And then we get to Annabelle, and I see Alfre Woodard. I'm like, oh my God, it's Alfre. Oh my God, it's Alfre Woodard. What's going to happen? And so, like, of course, they put her in the role of she has to sacrifice herself for this family who she just met yesterday.
Of course. Yeah. She couldn't be one of the girls.
No, and never. And like, it keeps going, and it keeps going to the point of even in the new film that just came out, the new Conjuring, we have, I think it was all of 2 Black people, and they played cops, so you could get rid of them immediately. That's a new thing they've been doing, making the Black people cops with 2 lines.
It's I do thank you for bringing that up, and because I wouldn't know, I personally, I wouldn't notice. I just go, that was a good movie, but you could add. There's so many avenues to add characters in these movies, and they add so many characters in these movies. It's not like it's like we're watching some like a character study of one person, and it's Robert De Niro and Taxi Driver, and you're going to run into 5 people through this movie. I'm just it's not. You have a family. The first movie, you have a lot of characters. The second movie, you have even more characters. The third movie, it's now like 6 movies in one, and then all your spin-offs.
Yeah.
Even in like La Llorona, which
the fact that they did that and they were like, we still have to make sure we center white people only. I was like, of all the issues with your movie, this is the one that's going to stand out, and you have many issues within this movie. Linda Cardinelli being wasted is one of them, but also shouldn't have been there because again, you can't commandeer someone's culture and also be like, well, we need to keep it white because
that could be that could have been a really like nice, just like Hispanic film that you employ Hispanic actors and you don't need white people in it at all. You were making La Llorona that was taking place in was that Spain, that one?
I think originally it was supposed to
I'm mixing it up with the Shudder movie.
I'm thinking The Curse of La Llorona.
I am thinking of The Curse of La Llorona. I'm mixing up the location of the Shudder movie.
Yeah, no, it was a hot mess. It was,
okay.
And again, you have this company that has committed to doing this universe in which they're going to shoehorn in a nun and make up obstacles and demons and heart pills, but they can't make up a couple of roles for brown people.
Yeah,
you can force a spinoff nobody asked for out of the Nun, but you can't be like, could somebody with actual lines be Black next time?
But you could also like, let's be real. You could also say like The Conjuring 3. You'd be like, we're making, and they're based off real cases, but you're making a lot of stuff up. You could say, here's this one case, and guess what? The whole family was just a normal Black family.
Yeah,
meaning like we're not stereotyping this family when I say that. And that's it. they're just people and characters, and we're telling the story around it. And I could see a comedy bit though of you have Ed Warren having his get out moment with the I voted for Obama 3 times to probably someone, because Ed Warren just imagine that in that movie though, that would be hysterical.
He'd breaking his guitar to do another Elvis Presley in a big conversation.
Yeah, that would
like,
be honestly. I kind of want to see it just for the fact that it would be really cringeworthy.
Oh yeah.
For if it was done that way.
Yeah. No, I mean, like there's cringeworthy things throughout because of the way they just don't treat people who aren't white well in this franchise, which I'm tired of seeing because we've had that since movies began. So why are we still stuck here? Especially when.
No, I absolutely agree with you on it. And you have and right now you have a universe that's like this Conjuring universe that's not going to stop. You have lanes. It's not like I keep saying, it's not like you have this one little story where it's like, well, these were the people that were involved in it. No, you've told us you could do whatever you want in this franchise.
You were literally making shit up. Like, even in this last Annabelle, the daughter couldn't have friends who were not white or a babysitter who was not white.
It was like with the it was the 70s. It wasn't like you're telling me a story from.
Yeah, they brought in the one kid from Love Victor and was like, he gets 2 scenes, make him work. And I was like, that's not, you could do more. You could do more.
I love your passion on this topic and just the different voice from what I'm used to hearing on it. On Flyover State of Film, we have it's more tongue in cheek. We have a heavily Puerto Rican member. Hi, Yusuf. He has the show. He'll go, what is Joe talking about? But no, I do appreciate you on this, bringing this topic up, and because that is a glaring thing when you're talking about 8 movies right now, 9 movies.
Yeah.
And you asked me, and I struggled to remember the end scene of one reporter and someone in a classroom.
I knew when they threw Alfre Woodard off of that balcony, we would never be improving this. Because you have access to Alfre Woodard, who has been an amazing actor for decades. And she's agreed to do your movie, which is beneath her. Even if the script had been better, which it wasn't. This movie's clearly beneath her. It's not going to be, and you're just like, sacrifice yourself, thanks. And I'm like, what is your damage? You have Alfre Woodard, and this is what you choose to do.
Yeah, it's Hollywood. They make bad decisions, and at the same time, it's like, you have James Wan, who's a Japanese. I don't want to get his
cosign because I don't know.
Yeah, I'm gonna look that up. But I'm saying you have James Wan, who I could tell you could tell at least in the first one, there's somewhat of maybe a little they're trying to add in diverse with some of the crew. It's not good. It's not good. I'm not saying it.
Two.
He's Australian, so that doesn't answer my question.
Yeah, I've actually never seen him. Now that we're talking about it.
Oh no, he's of Asian descent.
Yeah, because
he's Chinese. Yeah. Okay, Malaysian Chinese. So,
all right.
No, I just because I know that, and I know a decent amount of James Wan, and so I'm like you. It's not like you have a white filmmaker. Reason why I bring up his race, while we're talking about race, but yeah, no, because that's a great point to bring up about this franchise. It's not all good.
I would kill to know what those conversations are like. If he actually goes, could we try this time? And if they're saying no, or if he's just like, this is the way you want your movie, and I'm just trying to get through this so I can get back.
That might be true too.
I need to know.
I'm sure. You know what? I'm sure now James Wan, because I think he only directed one. The first one. I don't think he directed the second one.
Who did the second one?
But I'm sure now. While I look that up, I'm sure now. It's kind of like with James Cameron with all the Terminator movies. Oh, they're all great, and signs off and collects his paycheck. Or Steven Spielberg produced the Transformers movies. And said they were all great. We know they're not. I'm a Mortal Kombat nerd, so I liked it. But he did the second one.
I thought so. 'Cause I liked the second one, and I was like, that feels like James Wan was there.
I need to revisit the second one. I have 1 and 3 really fresh in my head.
I feel like the first and second one are the reasons why this franchise will keep taking my money, even though they keep proving they don't deserve it.
But you also like horror. You also like horror too, and I do like the lane. I do like the not lane. The lane's the wrong word. I do think there's an avenue for this type of horror in our life, right? Like this popcorn. It's scary, but it's a funhouse horror, right? Like this isn't. Kind of maybe except for the first one, like I said, that does sit with me. But it's not like, hey, go watch Hereditary, and then I mean, like, I'm gonna go think of Hereditary for a week, or God, what's that recent one they had? The Lodge, right? It's not like just like really heady, like it's our nice pop. The Conjuring is now or universe. It's our nice popcorn horror. They're gonna be dumb. Like you and I just had I think we did have a really good discussion on like race in these movies, and they should be doing better to that. But you know, they just needs to be called out that popcorn can be that.
Yeah, literally. Because when I think popcorn movies and blockbusters, I didn't hate as a child because I was a pretentious child, so blockbuster movies were not for me.
Oh, see, I'm like, give me the screams, give me the. One of my favorites is Urban Legends.
Yeah. But when I think like the blockbuster, I think like the big budget, like Independence Day. That's when I didn't hate. But I was like, Will Smith is here, and so is Vivica A. Fox. Oh my God. And I think those summer like blockbusters where it's like the Transformer's gonna dance for you, and I'm like, no, thank you.
Yes,
I don't need this.
That's fair. I guess blockbuster horror is like this, right?
It would be this definitely because this is it masquerades elevated horror. Elevated horror. I hate that phrase, but it's like Hereditary and The Witch and all of those.
Sure.
It masquerades as that, but also it's like here's the CGI Cricket Man. So this dog's gonna like transform for you real quick. Ha. Okay, back to our love story. We're gonna also shoehorn in. And
this is the series that I mean it's some similar age that you know the Saws were growing up, and then the Paranormals they were the Friday night you go to the movie theater. The theater's filled with 13-year-olds that got in, and they're gonna scream at certain points, and they're gonna go home. Some are going to be scared and most are going to sleep and forget about it. I feel like that's these movies today.
Yeah.
And there's an avenue for that. But as you pointed out, do better in your casting and have more voices because you have it. They don't have to be reserved for your art house horror films.
Listen.
No, I know. I'm just reiterating what you're saying. I'm not.
I'm agreeing.
I'm not having. You know, someone's gonna listen to this and go, "Joe said that."
No, but it's true, especially because unfortunately we know most horror fans will not engage with Black horror films.
Yeah,
which is why nobody's seen Tales from the Hood.
I was just gonna say I've seen you tweet Tales from the Hood. I've seen Tales from the Hood.
Thank you.
It's phenomenal. I also love anthology horror more than any other horror. So Tales from the Hood is watch Tales from the Hood. Whoever's listening, watch Tales from the Hood.
Yes.
And there's more other people of color horror movies besides Get Out and Candyman.
His House came out last October on Netflix. We all have Netflix, and we've all been at home.
His House?
We're listening. Yeah.
I gotta watch it.
It's on Netflix, and it is fucking fantastic. But people are like, oh, I was busy. And I'm like,
write that down.
You've been in a pandemic for a year.
No, like I said, I follow you on Twitter, and I see you going through, like, you go through the Shudder, catalog and all of this.
Yeah.
I'm like lazy, and I'm like, well, like I said, I've like yesterday. Oh, I've seen Child's Play 3, watched it. I don't need to, or like my junk horror, where it's I watched When a Stranger Calls the remake yesterday because I hate myself.
I still say the original, the opening is terrifying, and then they ruin it by leaving that house. And I'm like, I don't want to know where she goes later in life. I want to stay here with the creepiness.
my dad and my mom always says, so he doesn't get scared of the movie growing up, blah, blah, blah. But she always goes, oh, there was one. He screamed in the theaters when he was laying in bed next to her when they were dating, probably in the late 70s. And so I always think of that but I remember I rented it when it was 2004, I think that movie came out. I rented the remake, which is all in the house. It's not a good movie.
Yeah.
I remember I rented the original because my dad was like, you gotta see the original. I remember thinking that it's like really scary 20 minutes and the rest is a really boring detective movie from the 70s.
Yeah. No, like everything after they get her out of that house, I do not need, because the scariest part is her being screwed with and then him being like, have you checked on the kids? Mm-hmm. Someone's upstairs, and knowing it's coming from inside the house. And that is what is terrifying, because we all have that home invasion fear on top of our religious fear. Like,
that's another one. Like, I can't. We talk about movies we watch at night or whenever. I can't watch like The Strangers at night.
Can't either, and I love it, I love that movie, and I love that soundtrack because I'm a weirdo. So I'm like, oh my gosh, she's so melodic, and then she went on to marry Andy Samberg, so she's winning at life in many ways.
Sure, my wife. I just heard her come in. She's been out of town for 2 days, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to watch these things. I have no one home. Anyway, just running it back, Conjuring. Any other things we've missed while talking about the whole franchise, or even the first one? And would you recommend the first one?
I would recommend Conjuring and Conjuring 2, and I would recommend Annabelle Creation. Everything after that, you're on your own, and Annabelle, you're on your own.
Everything you just said, I agree with.
Yeah.
So I'll leave it out there. Where can the people find you?
You can find my podcast, A Nightmare on Fear Street, on Twitter and Instagram at A Nightmare Fierce, and then Facebook, A Nightmare on Fear Street. My personal stuff, you can find me at MISSSHARAI, and that's Miss Sharai, Twitter and Instagram, and that's where you can see me watching things and complaining or enjoying them, depending on the movie.
She writes really good articles.
Thank you.
I've read a few. They're very well written. So yeah, please do, and stay frightful, everyone. I'm still working on this sign off, so
I'm still changing mine every other drink, so it's fine.
Yeah, I've changed it. This is probably another one, or we'll try another one. It's today's too great to be terrifying. That's terrible. Have a good one, everyone. This is Flyover State of Fear.
Welcome to Flyover State of Fear.